for Presley and Dundee so far. Group D, Arbroath 3, Annan Athletic 0 and Ayr United 3. 4 for Athletic 0. Scott Brown's men very much charging through this League Cup group stage so far. In Group E, the only game is Dunfermline against Hamilton Accies. Dunfermline are 1-0 up in that one. Hearts host Dumbarton in that section tomorrow night. We'll have live commentary of that one on Sports Sound for you tomorrow evening. In Group F, it's East Kilbride 1, Inverness Cally Thistle 2. St Johnstone leads Raith Rovers by a goal to nil thanks to Jamie Gullen's goal against his former club. In Group G, it is Clyde 0, Stenhousemuir 0 and Motherwell 0, Morton 0 at Fir Park. The top two sides in that section going head to head but not separated thus far. And finally in Group H, it's East 5-2, Brora Rangers 0, and it's goalless between Kelty Hearts of League One and Kilmarnock of the Premiership. So those are the half-time scores in the League Cup. At half-time here at Ibrox, it is goalless between Rangers and Panathinaikos. Stephen Thompson, it started brightly for Rangers. Raskin had that wee half chance, and then quite quickly things started to get on top of them and they were fortunate not to concede.
There was a spell when they were rocked, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think that Rangers did start the game in a composed manner. A lot of touches of the ball, a couple of nice interchanges, and Peter spotted very early how narrow Tavernier was, trying to get that numerical advantage in the middle of the park. Things were going okay. Panathinaikos really hadn't come forward the pitch at all, but that changed very quickly, and there was a spell of about 5 minutes where Panathinaikos really should have taken the lead. I mean, don't get me wrong, Butland makes 2 good saves, but from a striker's point of view, those have got to be goals. There was another couple of moments, cutbacks, couple of penalty claims, and Rangers were looking vulnerable in wide areas when Panathinaikos were on the counter-attack, which happened quite a few times. Palestri and Vaginidis down the right-hand side, Jurisic sometimes on the left. Panathinaikos got their tails up and started to really dominate the game, and Rangers were looking vulnerable. And to their credit, I'd say the last 5 minutes they came back into the match, showed a bit of character, had a couple of efforts in goal. The Diamandi one touched around the post, then you had the shot that looked as though it was going to go in. That was Maksimovic came off his tummy and went wide. But in open play in general, I don't feel Rangers are doing anywhere near enough creatively. I think they're lacking penetration. I think they're very obvious in the way they're playing. There's no variation, there's no runs in behind. To me, it's just very obvious and so easy for Panathinaikos to set up and defend against. And the flip side of that, when they have been defending, Suter on a number of occasions has driven in with the ball, lost it. He's trying to make his way back, and Panathinaikos are trying to pick them off. He's out of position. When Tavernier's been as narrow as he has been, sometimes they've had an overload on the left-hand side. So there's things to look at defensively from Rangers. The one bonus for Rangers at this minute in time is they're in that changing room and it's 0-0. And I don't think the performance in the first half was a good performance, so I'd be surprised if Russell Martin wasn't looking at his bench. And I know he thought that some of his more experienced players weren't fit enough to start the game, but I mean, I think he'd be looking there thinking about making changes for coming out into the second half, if not quickly into the second half, because they've not asked enough questions. This is the home game. You've got to take something over to Greece next week, and they're just not being convincing.
Yeah, Peter, that pass from Rodwell into Raskin in the first couple of minutes, and he gets a driving run and shot and goal, that felt like the template Russell Martin wanted. But what kind of went wrong after that? Because they didn't get those chances again for a long time.
I know Stephen covered a lot of the areas there, but the first 8 minutes, you would look at it going, listen, Rangers looking very comfortable here. They're looking good, they're on the ball, they're in possession. They're not creating much, but they're in possession. Had a wee spell, he goes through, he doesn't get a good connection to the shot, and it goes wide. But then Panathinaikos gets a set plays, and for some reason it just seems like everything falls. They should score, let's be honest about that. They miss a massive chance, a big opportunity, they don't take it. Rangers are lucky to not be 1-0 down. And the next couple of minutes, it seems like Rangers are all over the place. They can't seem to get it work in the build-up. Panathinaikos, I have to say, is suddenly realising if we just sit in a block and let Rangers force something, because Stephen mentioned it earlier in the commentary as well, there's no runners in behind from Rangers. There's nobody taking the run. There's nobody playing the ball. And his players as the wingers they have playing with Curtis and Dowell on the other side are not kind of wingers in that sense of giving the ball and create something out of nothing. They're not that type of players. So they're kind of stuck if they don't make these runs and force Panathinaikos to run towards their own goal. So they have to play through them. And if they just sit in this block that they've kind of realised if they do so, Rangers makes mistakes, they give the ball away, and they're open and vulnerable on the other end. So game plan-wise, it works much better into the hands of Panathinaikos than it does for Rangers. So Russell Martin has a big task right now at half-time to figure out what are we going to do here when we have in possession of the ball, because that's when they seem to be when Panathinaikos is more dangerous.
Yeah, Stephen, I mean, Russell Martin arrived with a reputation of playing a certain way, and obviously it crystallised at Southampton, where they're going up against teams with far deeper squads, far more money, far more resource, and they're trying to play a certain way and they were getting picked off. Now obviously those are concerns that the Rangers fans would have had when he came here to a point. Now we're 45 minutes into the season, the squad's not really taken shape yet. They've not had a lot of time together on the training pitch, so you have to apply all that context. But I guess it'll be a bit of concern at just how open Rangers were at times.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's probably how you're going to see Rangers play this season, and there will be times when they're caught and they concede from the way that the manager wants to play, but that's what he believes in, that's his philosophy, and I'm sure it will get picked apart by the pundits and supporters when it does happen. But they have looked vulnerable, there's no doubt about it. I think for me, as I said at the very top of the show, this is not the team that you'll see starting Rangers matches in the next month to 2 months time, and not everything's going to click straight away, but you can see the nervousness and the lack of energy from the crowd. I mean, we've been here at games the last 2, 3, 4 seasons in Europe when the atmosphere's been electric and the team have been carried by it, but you've got to give them something to get on the edge of their seats. They're not just going to give you that atmosphere, you've got to earn that atmosphere, and Rangers haven't done enough of that. I mean, in terms of creatively getting the supporters excited, they've not really opened them up. You know, we were 36 minutes in before we had the shot on target. As I said earlier, it's the home game. You've got to take the game to Panathinaikos, and this isn't a brilliant European team we're watching here, Panathinaikos. You know, we've seen better over the last few years come here. Rangers, I feel as though have got a lot of levels to go through, but the team isn't just quite there yet. And it's, you know, as I said again, it's not just going to click. He's had 4 weeks to work with these players. This probably won't be his starting 11 in a few weeks' time. So I think the expectation isn't harsh, because there's always an expectation, but there's not been a lot of time for him to implement what he wants from this team, and there's not been a competitive match for them to do it in. This is their first competitive match, so you don't want to be too harsh, but certainly, you know, it's going to have to improve, because the level that they played at in that first half isn't going to be good enough.
Yeah, Peter, we mentioned the wingers, and you know, you do feel sorry for them a bit, because Dowell and Curtis aren't natural wingers, but they're kind of being asked to sit out on the touchline. It's a position you played a lot through your time here, and I guess, could they do more, or have they just really not been given the chance, and the fact they're not, it doesn't come naturally to them?
But to be fair, you know, sometimes you have to excuse the players, because sometimes it's down to the style of play. If Russell Martin doesn't want them to get on the ball and do these things, then as a player you're not going to do it, because you don't want to upset the manager. You're not going to go and put yourself in the bad books. Do they play with freedom? Do they get allowed to do what they want? That's the question need to be asked, because if you are, then you should be running in behind more. But what I find is difficult for Rangers tonight, especially for Curtis and Dowell on the wings, is Aarons at times runs up and plays in the same line as them inside the pitch, and that means Raskin comes out in a kind of false fullback position on the left-hand side, and it closes up that space for actually Curtis to go and get onto the ball in those kind of areas. But he's probably actually better, in my opinion, with the ball back to goal, and he can play and link up and go through the gears in there. He's not a player that should get it out on the wing and then go and create.
No, and there's not been enough occasions
exactly
where the movement from other players has created a situation where you're then 1v1 high up the pitch and you can take your fullback on.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're receiving the ball, Panathinaikos are set up, they're receiving the ball facing their own goal. They're